Hello, today I'm going to show you guys how to add brake load to automation cars with update 0.37 for BeamNG. They added brake load for all disc brake cars, at least all the vanilla ones. You can add it to a mod and can add it to automation cars with just a little bit of editing the export files. So we use this as an example. It's just a really high powered car, makes it easier to show the brakes. So once you go to export, just make sure it's a lot easier if you do not tick the zip pack mod. You can do it later, but for now it's just easier. Don't tick it and then just export. I've already exported the cart, so we'll get right into it. The files you find will be found in BeamNG folder, so local app data, local BeamNG, BeamNG current mods, and because we did it non-zipped, it'll be in the unpacked folder. So that card was called the Gashon, just key mash, and this is where all the files for the car will be found. I do have a written guide on the README page for my automation tool. Um, you don't have to download the tool for this, it's just reading the guide found here. It'll be in the description. So, first step, we're going to come into the car file, which will be 72A4E for this particular car. It's just a random number, so just look at that for the folder with then letters, numbers. First file, we're going to the main. So for this file, we want to add the glow map. So if you search for glow map, you'll find this section right down here. If your car doesn't have a glow map section, it probably just means you haven't added a light to the car before you exported it. You can just manually add the glow map section, just sort of put it in the same sort of place under Camso trim, and then the same level as variables. So first thing here, we're going to come in and add the brake glow to glow map. If you want to use carbon rotors, then there's a different one you have to use here. I'll show that later. But for the most basic cars, just use all this stuff here. You just copy, and then just come down here and paste. And if you want, you can format. That should be fine like that. So we'll save that. Then let's come back into the folder for the next step. Next one we'll want to look at is the suspension mesh front and suspension mesh rear. So in these sections, you have suspension mesh and then the brake mesh. Brake mesh is what we want to change. We want to change the mesh for the rotor, which is like the texture and the physical model, from this automation generated one. And we're going to change it to one of these options from B. You can either use brake to solid, plain, which is vented rotor, drilled, slotted, or the carbon brakes. If you're using the carbon brakes, you have to use that different glow map that I said earlier. So even though the car was built with, I think it was built with carbon rotors, we're just going to use drilled rotors just for the hell of it. So we'll copy the brake just drilled, and then we're going to overwrite this section here between the quotations. So we'll do that there, and we'll actually come and do it on the same on the rear. Then next part, up the top here, we want to add a material override. So we'll copy this section here. Make sure you include the comma, and then we're going to attach it, paste it in just after the first bracket, so just after scale. Paste that, and paste that. Now all we have to do is edit so that this at the end of the break, the material override is actually assigned to the correct tire. So this is the front left, so this is the front left. This is the front right, so then we make this change to front right. So we'll save that, and then come to the brake disc drilled at the rear. So same idea, after the first parentheses, paste, and then swap this to rear left, paste, swap this to rear right. So we can actually save, and this just as is will work in Beam right away. So let's fire up Beam. easiest way is honestly just firing up the grid map, just so we can see a little bit easier, and also it loads faster. So that, oh, it's actually already up here. It's called the Gashon, so we'll just load that up. So some of you notice the rotors are huge. That's because the scaling doesn't quite work between automation and beam, or using the automation brakes are a lot smaller, so they have to be scaled up quite a bit. The beam brakes are different size, so you have to scale them down. So let's come back to the files here. In the brake mesh, we want to change the scaling. So that's this part right here. X is the width of the brakes, and then Y and Z are the height length. So let's just drop this down to 1.2. We have to scale it quite a bit down from what's by default. And then technically you have to do the same for the rears as well, or for the width of the rotor. So let's just do that 1.1, whatever. Something like that. You can always mess with it later. And then do that for all the different rotors. So that should already work. If we come back into Beam and hit Control R to reload the car, now the rear rotors are roughly down to size. They're maybe a little bit big, but it's close enough. So now we'll come back and do the same for the fronts. Let's do 1.6. The fronts are a little bit bigger. Just come down to 1.4, whatever it is. Doesn't really matter. Refresh the car. So now, right away, this should just work. So if we make this night so we can see it a little bit, just so we can see this a little bit easier. And then currently the brakes will be set that I have to get all the way up to 600 degrees to actually overheat the brakes. So there we go. Once the brakes reach 600 degrees, they overheat or they start glowing exactly the way it's supposed to. The other thing we can do, let's go back to noon, is change the design of the rotor. So I use the drilled rotors, which is what, I'll show the backside, which is exactly what we got. The car originally was supposed to use carbon rotors. So if we come back to the list here, remember I said we need to use a different glow map for the carbon rotors. So we'll copy this one instead, and then replace the brake glow for all of these that we had before. So copy, paste, and just overwrite what we had before. Next, we want to change the brake mesh. So replace the brake disc drilled in the mesh for the brake disc drilled with the carbon rotors. Interesting, important thing here, there's a different model for the front and rear carbon brakes. So just make sure once you paste it in, either copy the rear or just change it over to rear. And then the last thing we have to do is change the material override. Carbon's just is the only one that you need to do this. If you use this carbon material override on the normal brakes, it doesn't work. So you just sort of have to match it for carbon only. Then come here, paste. Last thing, like we did before, change this to rears. Rear right, front right, front left. And actually, I may update these. So now if I reload the car, now they're carbon rotors. Scaling's a little bit off again because each of the rotor models is slightly different, just to make it difficult for you, but this will work just as well as it did before. Last thing you can do, this is an optional, you don't need to. You can come down into the suspension files, which are these two here, and you can change the temperature at which the glow starts. So if we come in here, search for pressure wheels, and find the correct one, which is directly under the cancel brake front, and then the other file cancel brake rear. Here we're just going to add the variables for starting the brake glow at whatever was set, and then setting the brake end, which is just the temperature at which the brake is the most glowy. So if we want to set this really high, we can, but usually you want to set this a little bit lower so you can actually see it. So let's go down to brake glow 300. So now come down back to Beam, refresh, and let's just go to normal camera view and change the down to night. So since the brake's already really hot to begin with, I could probably just drag the brakes a little bit and they start glowing really early. So that's pretty much everything you got to change if you want to have it. We can also come back into the rear and do the same thing we just did with the pressure wheels or the change in the brake glow. But that's the extent of everything you have available for changing at the moment that I've found. You can also have different, all the different rotors. It's just a matter of messing around with them. If you do have any issues with it, just leave a comment, or you can just hop into the automation Discord. There's an auto beam channel where you can ask questions for doing exports from automation to beam and different issues with the files, or even tutorials. This is pretty much the end of it. Just wanted to do a quick shout out to Furious Fox 25 Discord. He's the one who came up with a slightly alternate instructions that for adding brake glow, and this is the slightly better one than what I had. So big thanks to him for sharing that with the Discord. So that's it. Thanks you all for watching. If you have any issues, leave a comment and have a good day.